Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. I still remember the first night it happened. I'd just turned 24, fresh out of college, and had convinced 3 of my closest friends to take a road trip across the country. I thought it would be fun, just 4 of us, a van packed with snacks, music blasting, and endless stretches of asphalt ahead. I'm Alex, by the way, and at the time I worked at a small marketing firm in Denver. My life was routine, predictable, even boring. I liked it that way, safe, easy, no surprises. At least, that's what I told myself. The trip started normally. We left late in the afternoon, sunlight fading as we drove west. I was in the passenger seat with my laptop tucked in my lap, streaming a playlist while Jamie, our driver, sang along off-key. Behind us, Laura and Mike were arguing over snacks. Mike insisted we needed more beef jerky. Laura said we had enough. The wind was cool through the cracked windows, the kind that makes everything smell like asphalt and pine trees. For hours, it felt ordinary. Safe. Fun. But the first odd thing happened just past a rest stop in rural Wyoming. I noticed a mile marker ahead, reading 112. I squinted, thinking maybe I misread it, but as we drove on, the next sign said 111, and then 110. My stomach sank a little. Jamie? I said, didn't we just pass 112? She glanced at me without slowing down. You're seeing things. Mile markers don't go backwards. I tried to laugh it off, but the knot in my stomach didn't loosen. That night, we stopped at the first gas station we saw, deserted, flickering lights, the kind that feel like they've been abandoned for decades. I went inside to grab a soda, and even the cashier looked off. He didn't smile, didn't move much, just nodded when I asked for a bottle. When I returned to the van, everyone laughed. It's just old signage, Laura said. Relax, Alex. You've been staring at the road too long. I wanted to believe her. I really did. We kept driving. Hours passed. The highway stretched endlessly, empty except for the occasional semi-truck. Around midnight, that's when things started getting unsettling. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw headlights. Just one pair. Following us, steady, never overtaking. At first, I thought it was a truck, but it didn't move lanes, didn't blink. It just stayed there, 2 glowing dots in the dark. Guys, I whispered. Do you see that? Mike snorted. It's a car. Big deal. Keep driving. But then the radio, the van's old, scratchy radio, flickered. Static at first. Then a whisper. So soft I thought I imagined it. Alex! Alex! I froze. My pulse spiked. Hello? I asked, fumbling with the volume. The others laughed again, calling me paranoid. Probably some old station messing with you, Jamie said, her voice calm. But my stomach told me otherwise. We took the next exit, thinking maybe we'd shake the headlights. The van turned onto a side road, only to find the same gas station. Same flickering sign. Same emptiness. I wanted to scream, to wake them up, but the others were joking, taking photos. That's when I noticed it, the mile marker by the station. 112 again. I tried to tell myself it was coincidence. Maybe some weird loop in the map, a detour. But my gut told me something wasn't right. That night, we camped in the van on the station's empty lot. I tried to sleep, but every time my eyes closed, I heard faint tires crunching on gravel. The headlights weren't moving, just sitting there at the edge of the lot, waiting. And every few minutes, the radio whispered my name again, followed by secrets only I could know, things I had never told anyone. I nudged Laura awake. Do you hear that? She laughed. You're imagining things, Alex. I wasn't. By morning, I was exhausted, my nerves raw. We tried again, taking a different exit, different highway, different route. But hours later, we were back. The mile markers repeating. The same gas station looming ahead, flickering in the heat of the sun this time. Mike started joking about the loop, but his laughter was thin, nervous. Laura grew quiet, staring out the window like she could see through the van and into some unseen world. Jamie drove on, but her hands gripped the wheel tight enough to leave white marks. Night fell again, and with it, the headlights returned. No matter which lane we took, how fast we drove, they stayed behind us. Then the whispers came, louder this time. My name, my friends' names. Secrets. Confessions. Things from our pasts we had never told each other, delivered in that hiss of static over the radio. "Turn off the radio," I said, voice trembling. Jamie did, but the whisper continued, now coming from the speakers themselves. The van's sound system. "I see you. I know you." We didn't speak after that. None of us wanted to acknowledge it. We kept driving, exhausted, paranoid, hoping morning would bring logic. A few hours in, I looked at the map. We had been driving in circles for what felt like days, but only a few hours had passed. And then I saw it, the exit number, 7. But we had already passed exit 7 at least 3 times. "Something's wrong," I whispered. Jamie didn't answer. The headlights returned. That's when I noticed the first sign of someone outside. A figure standing at the edge of the road watching. Dark clothes, no features visible, but I felt their gaze drill through the windshield. I slammed my hands on the dashboard. "Stop! Stop the van!" She hesitated, then pulled over near the gas station. Same station. The figure didn't move, just stood there, watching. We tried to laugh it off, to pretend it was just a hitchhiker, some local in the middle of nowhere. But then the van's door clicked. The sound wasn't from us, not from Jamie. I looked over my shoulder. The sliding door was closed, locked. "Who's out there?" Laura whispered. No answer. I wanted to open it, to confront whoever, or whatever it was, but every instinct screamed to stay put. My heart sank into my stomach as I realized we were completely trapped, completely alone, and completely watched. Then came the notes. Small scraps of paper left on the dashboard, the seats, even tucked into our backpacks. Messages like, asterisk, "You think you're safe." Asterisk, asterisk, "I'm always behind you." Asterisk, asterisk, "Do you remember when you told me?" Asterisk. We tried calling the police. No signal. Our phones acted like we were in the middle of the ocean. Sleep became impossible. Every noise, every flicker of light, every whisper of wind felt like it carried meaning. On the 3rd night, Jamie almost drove us off the road, swerving to avoid headlights that weren't there. We screamed, argued, cried. The van's radio screamed our secrets back at us, louder than ever. I tried reasoning. It's a loop. Hallucination. We're stressed. We'll wake up tomorrow and everything will be fine. But I knew it wasn't stress. Not anymore. The turning point came when I saw the figure inside the van. I hadn't realized it was there, just standing motionless, watching us. I froze. My hands trembled on the dashboard. Every nerve screamed to move, to run, but I couldn't. "Alex," Laura whispered. Her voice trembled. "I see you," it said. Calm, almost bored. The eyes were empty, cold, unblinking. I could feel my pulse in my ears as the van's radio hummed, whispering our secrets, mocking us. We screamed. We tried to flee. Jamie floored the accelerator, swerving, the tires screaming. The headlights vanished, or maybe they didn't exist at all. The figure disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving nothing but the echo of its presence. We didn't stop until the sun rose. By then, the endless highway seemed ordinary again, quiet. But we never went back to the gas station. We took every exit, every small road, every shortcut, until finally, miles away, the world felt normal again. Even now, I can't drive past a highway at night without looking in the rearview mirror. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear the whispers. Sometimes I dream of the mile markers, repeating endlessly, leading me back to that flickering gas station. We never spoke of it much after that trip. People would laugh if I tried to explain. And maybe it was all some shared hallucination, some twisted game of exhaustion and stress. Maybe. But every instinct, every cell in my body, tells me it wasn't. People like that don't need a reason. They just need an opportunity. And sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened. It's knowing it could happen again, anywhere, to anyone. So if you're ever driving down a long, empty highway late at night, Pay attention to the mile markers. Notice the exits. Listen to the radio. And if you hear someone whisper your name, make sure you're not alone. Because the road doesn't always lead where you think it does. And some highways, they never end. Story 2. I still remember the exact moment I realized something was horribly wrong. I was driving alone down Route 66, somewhere between Seligman and Kingman, Arizona. It was late, probably around 11:30 p.m., and I had taken a detour I thought would shave a little time off my trip. That's when the fog started. Not the kind you see in movies, soft and ghostly. This was thick, unnatural, like someone had poured a wet blanket across the desert. Headlights barely pierced a few feet ahead, and the world outside the windshield disappeared into a gray, shapeless void. My name's Alex. I was 24 at the time, just got out of college, working a boring data entry job, living in a tiny apartment in Phoenix. My life felt safe, predictable, even dull. I liked it that way. Quiet nights, routine drives, and a handful of friends who texted more than they called. That night was supposed to be simple. A road trip back home after visiting a friend in Flagstaff. I'd driven this stretch plenty of times. I knew the desert, the curves, the small gas stations with their flickering neon signs. That's why the fog threw me off immediately. Something about it wasn't right. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Fog happens, especially at night in June. But the first off moment came when I glanced at the rearview mirror. There was a car behind me, or at least there should have been, but I couldn't see headlights. Just a shadow moving slightly, sliding with me like it was floating. I blinked, and it seemed to stretch, distort, like it didn't obey the laws of distance. My stomach churned. I laughed quietly to myself, muttering, "Great, just fog hallucinations. Classic." I told myself to focus on the road, to breathe, to ignore it. The fog didn't thin. It got thicker, heavier, almost tactile, pressing against the car like I could reach out and touch it. I tried to follow the road markers, but every mile marker repeated itself. 143, 144, then again 143. The same old deserted gas station appeared over and over, lights buzzing weakly through the mist. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. Something about the repetition made the air feel wrong, as if I'd been here before, though I knew I hadn't. Then the mirrors started changing. I didn't notice it at first, but my reflection, my own face, began to look wrong. Hollow eyes, a pale, drawn version of myself staring back. Every slight turn of my head made the reflection shift unnaturally, like it had its own life. I swerved once, nearly hitting the faded yellow line, my heart hammering. I tried to laugh it off, like it was just my imagination, but my pulse was screaming otherwise. "Okay, Alex, it's just fog. Calm down," I whispered to myself, hands shaking. I fumbled for the radio, hoping some music or talk show might ground me. Static. Just static. Then, faintly, a voice, my own voice, distorted, whispering secrets I hadn't told anyone. My breath caught. I slammed the radio off, but the whispering continued. I could feel it crawling along the edges of my consciousness, repeating things I had never said aloud, things I had hidden even from my closest friends. Panic started to claw at me. I tried to turn back, but every exit looped me right back to that same gas station. My stomach sank. I had been driving for hours, or maybe minutes, but the scenery never changed. It was the same stretch of asphalt, same cracked signs, same buzzing neon. Shadows moved in the mist just beyond the reach of my headlights, too far to identify, too close to ignore. I could feel eyes on me, though I couldn't see a soul. Sometimes I thought I caught the outline of someone walking along the shoulder, but when I blinked, there was nothing. I called my friend Jake. No answer. I called my mom. No answer. The cell signal had vanished. It felt unreal, like I had slipped into some parallel version of the highway where time didn't exist. My breathing was shallow. Every small sound, the hum of the tires, the faint buzz of the gas station lights, was amplified. I felt utterly alone, but also watched. I could feel it in my gut, a presence. Not human, at least not entirely human. But it didn't move like a person, it waited. Patient. I don't know how long I drove. I wasn't keeping track anymore. At some point, I noticed another car tailing me, or maybe the same shadow from before. It mimicked every turn, every move, keeping the same distance, yet never fully visible. The mirrors betrayed me again. That hollow-eyed version of me was smiling now, just the corners of the lips twisting impossibly. I slammed the steering wheel. No, this isn't real, I muttered. But my mind wasn't offering any reprieve. I had entered something that looked like reality but wasn't. Then the headlights appeared, faint and distant ahead. Relief surged. Maybe someone else was coming. I aimed for them, driving faster, weaving, hoping for escape. But as I drew closer, the lights vanished. No other car, no road ahead, just fog, and that gas station, blinking weakly, always there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I gripped the wheel and drove through it, hoping to break the cycle. The fog thickened. Shadows swirled, shapes bending unnaturally. I realized I wasn't just seeing my reflection in the mirrors. I was seeing versions of myself. One with bruised, hollow cheeks. Another with eyes black as night, staring at me like it knew my deepest fears. And the whispers became almost words, taunting, coaxing, revealing. My secrets, my shame, my regrets. I could hear them clear as day. I covered my ears, but the sound pressed inside my skull. Hours, or maybe minutes, later, the fog started to thin. I wasn't sure how or why. The highway stretched before me again, real, normal, dotted with streetlights, the faint orange glow of distant towns. I pulled over at the next gas station, shaking, sweaty, unable to speak. My hands were trembling so badly I couldn't open the car door at first. I fumbled, finally stepped out, looked around. Everything was ordinary, too ordinary. Nothing to explain what I had just gone through. My phone had service again. Messages, calls, all normal. I didn't tell anyone for days. Who would believe me? Route 66 fog, I said to myself. You just freaked out, Alex. Stress. Late night. Gas station lights. But I knew what I saw. I knew the hollow eyes. I knew the whispers. I knew the shadows following, waiting. Something had been with me, testing me, watching. And I had no idea why. Weeks later, I drove that stretch again, cautiously in daylight. Nothing happened. The road looked mundane. The gas stations looked mundane. The world was as it had always been. But I didn't drive alone anymore. I made sure someone knew where I was. I never took shortcuts again. I could feel that fog's presence lurking in the edges of my memory, a quiet warning. I never wanted to see it again. Even now, I can't hear the hum of tires over asphalt or the faint buzz of neon signs at night without a flicker of fear. I think about that hollow-eyed version of myself, smiling, patient, always waiting, and I realize it didn't need to harm me to leave a mark. It just needed me to know it was there, always, somewhere, watching, waiting, and maybe the most terrifying part is knowing it could happen again. Sometimes when I drive late, just past sunset, I glance at the rearview mirror, and sometimes, for a heartbeat, I think I see that smile again. Hollow eyes, patient, waiting. I still don't drive Route 66 alone. It's better that way, because some things, they don't need a reason to follow you. They just need a chance. And the fog never forgets. Story 3. Have you ever been so tired that the world starts to feel fake? Not dreamlike, not magical, just wrong in a quiet way. Like the road is a little too empty. Like the air inside your car is thinner than it should be. Like the person sitting next to you is talking, but their voice sounds delayed, like it's coming through a wall. That's the only way I can explain what happened to us that night at the rest stop. My name is Daniel. I was 26 when this happened, living in Ohio at the time, working a boring warehouse job and trying to convince myself I wasn't wasting my 20s. My best friend Matt had just gotten accepted into a graduate program in Colorado, and our friend Lena was moving out there too. So we decided to make a road trip out of it. Nothing dramatic. 3 friends, 1 old Honda CR-V, too much gas station coffee, and a playlist we had all secretly started to hate by the second day. It was late October, the kind of cold that settles into your hands even with the heat on. We had been driving since morning, crossing through a long stretch of highway where the exits seemed to get farther and farther apart. I don't remember the exact state line anymore, and honestly, none of us agreed on it later. Matt swore we were still in Missouri. Lena said we had already crossed into Kansas. I just remember flat darkness on both sides of the highway and the sound of the tires humming like a low voice under the floor. Around midnight, Lena started complaining that she needed a bathroom. Matt was driving, and he kept saying, "Next exit. I promise." But the next exit never came. The GPS showed nothing for miles except one thin blue line cutting through black space. No gas stations, no towns, no rest areas, just highway. Then maybe 10 minutes later we saw the sign. Rest area, 1 mile. It was old looking, not rusted exactly, but faded, like it had been sitting there since before any of us were born. The reflective letters barely caught our headlights. Lena leaned forward between the seats. "Please, take it." Matt frowned at the GPS screen mounted on the dash. "It doesn't show anything here." "Maybe it's not updated," I said. I wanted to sound casual, but something about that sign bothered me. It wasn't just that it wasn't on the map. It was the way it appeared out of nowhere, standing alone on the shoulder with no other signs before it. No facilities ahead. No warning. Nothing. Matt clicked on the turn signal, even though there wasn't another car anywhere near us, and took the exit. The rest area sat at the end of a short, curved road lined with trees. That was the first strange thing, because the highway had been surrounded by open fields for miles. These trees were tall and dense, their branches hanging over the road like they were trying to close behind us. The building came into view slowly. It was a low brick structure with yellow lights glowing under a flat roof. 2 bathrooms, a row of vending machines, a few picnic tables, and an information board with maps and posters behind cloudy glass. The parking lot was almost empty except for one white cargo van parked near the far end, facing away from us. The street looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. I didn't say that out loud. Back then, I just rubbed my eyes and told myself I was exhausted. Matt parked near the entrance. Lena grabbed her phone and got out before the engine was even off. I remember the cold hitting my face when I stepped outside. It smelled like wet leaves and old concrete. Somewhere in the trees, something creaked, like a branch bending under weight. Lena went into the women's bathroom. Matt headed for the vending machines, mumbling about wanting chips. I stood by the car for a second, stretching my legs, looking at the white van. There were no markings on it, no company name, no plates on the front, though I knew some states didn't require them. The windshield looked black from where I stood. I told myself it was nothing. Inside, the rest area had that old public building smell, bleach, stale air, and something metallic from the drinking fountain. The lights buzzed overhead. The men's bathroom was empty, but not dirty. It was actually too clean. No paper on the floor, no graffiti, no smell except soap. When I came back out, Matt was standing in front of the vending machines with a weird expression. "What?" I asked. He held out his palm. There were 3 coins in it, not quarters, not anything I recognized at first. "They came out of the machine," he said. I looked closer. They were old coins, dark, heavy, worn smooth around the edges. One had a date on it from the 1970s. "You put money in?" I asked. "No." I hit the button because it looked stuck and those dropped. The vending machines were ancient. Not retro style, actually old. One sold soda brands I hadn't seen since childhood. Another had candy wrappers with faded designs, like the kind you'd see in an old advertisement. Before I could say anything, Lena came out of the bathroom, walking fast. "We need to leave," she said. Matt gave a little laugh. "Why?" She looked back at the bathroom door. "There's someone in there." I glanced behind her. "You said it was empty." "It was," she said. Then I heard someone crying in the last stall. The way she said it made my stomach tighten. "Did you see anyone?" I asked. "No." I knocked and asked if they were okay. The crying stopped. Then someone whispered my name. Matt stopped smiling. For a few seconds, none of us moved. Then he said, "Okay, we're tired. Let's just go." That should have been the end of it. We walked back to the car, all three of us pretending not to hurry. I kept my eyes on the white van, and for 1 second, I thought I saw movement behind the windshield. Just a pale shape shifting in the driver's seat. When we got inside the car, Matt locked the doors. The sound was loud in the silence. He started the engine, backed out, and drove toward the exit road. But the exit road wasn't there. At first, none of us said anything. The road we had come in on should have been straight ahead, curving back through the trees to the highway. Instead, there was only a narrow service lane blocked by a chain, and beyond that, thick woods. Matt slowed down. "What the hell?" Lena turned around in her seat. "Did you go the wrong way?" "There's one way out," he snapped. He looped around the parking lot. We passed the bathrooms again, the vending machines, the picnic tables, the white van. Then we came back to the same blocked service lane. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Lena held hers up. Same thing. Matt checked the GPS. The blue dot was spinning in place, not on a road, not near anything. Just blank gray space. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. Except we weren't in a hallway. We were in a car, and the footsteps were outside. Slow, measured, coming from behind us. Matt looked in the rearview mirror. I watched his face change. He whispered, "Don't turn around." Of course, Lena turned around. There was a man standing near the back of the car. Not close, maybe 20 feet away. He wore a brown jacket, dark pants, and a baseball cap pulled low. His hands hung at his sides. He wasn't waving, wasn't asking for help, just standing there, staring at us. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could feel him looking at me. Matt hit the gas. The car jerked forward, tires squealing slightly on the damp pavement. He drove past the picnic tables and around the building again, faster this time. The white van was still parked in the same place. Then we saw the exit road. It was back. None of us spoke as Matt turned onto it. The trees leaned over us, blocking the sky. The headlights only reached a few yards ahead. I kept looking in the side mirror, expecting to see the man running after us, but there was nothing. After maybe 30 seconds, the road opened up, but not onto the highway. We were back in the parking lot. Same building, same vending machines, same white van. Lena started crying quietly. Matt slammed the brakes so hard my seatbelt locked across my chest. "No," he said. "No, no, no." He drove the loop again. Once, twice, 3 times. Every time, the road curved through the trees and brought us back to the rest area. The 3rd time, as we rolled past the building, the vending machines lit up one by one. Click, click, click. Behind the cloudy glass of the information board, I noticed the posters for the first time. Concerts from 1982. Missing dog flyers with phone numbers that had no area codes. A weathered poster for a county fair dated September 1976. And taped over the map was a fresh piece of white paper. I know it was fresh because it was clean, bright, not faded at all. It had 3 names written on it. Matt, Lena, Daniel. My heart sank into my stomach as the door clicked shut behind me, and I realized I was completely alone. Someone was watching, and I had no way out. That line sounds dramatic now, but in that moment, it was exactly how it felt. Like the world had shut a door behind us. Matt stopped the car near the bathrooms and put it in park. His hands were shaking. "We're not staying in the car," Lena said. Matt looked at her like she was insane. "Where do you want to go?" "I don't know," she said. "But he's out there." Then something tapped on my window. Once, softly. I turned my head. The man in the brown jacket was standing right beside my door. His face was close to the glass. I still couldn't describe it right. Not because it was monstrous. It wasn't. That was the worst part. He looked normal. Middle-aged, pale, with a thin mouth and calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. Lena screamed. Matt threw the car into drive and floored it. The man didn't jump back. He didn't flinch. The side mirror clipped his arm as we surged forward, and he barely reacted. Matt drove straight toward the blocked service lane this time. "Hold on," he yelled. We hit the chain. The impact wasn't huge, but it was enough to throw us forward and make the hood bounce. The chain snapped loose on one side and scraped under the car with a horrible metallic shriek. We lurched through the gap and onto the narrow lane beyond it. For a second, I thought we had made it. Then the headlights caught something ahead. The white cargo van. It was parked sideways across the lane, blocking the road. Matt braked. The car slid a few feet on wet leaves. The driver's door of the van opened. No one got out. We sat there, breathing hard, staring at that open door. Then the radio turned on. Not music. Static at first. Then a voice, low and distorted, like someone talking through a bad speaker. "Rest," it said. Lena covered her ears. Matt punched the power button, but the radio stayed on. "Rest," the voice said again. "You're tired." I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. I don't even know why I grabbed the keys. Matt was driving. Panic makes you stupid. It makes you reach for control even when there isn't any. Then Lena said something I'll never forget. "Daniel," she whispered, "look at the back seat." I turned slowly. There was an old paper cup sitting in the middle of the back seat between our bags. It hadn't been there before. Printed on the side was the name of the rest area, or what I guess was the name. Willow Ridge Stop. Under that, in faded red letters, it said, "Open all night. Stay as long as you need." Matt suddenly threw the car in reverse. He backed up fast, too fast, almost hitting a tree, then spun the wheel and drove back the way we came. We burst into the parking lot again. This time, the white van was gone from its original spot. The man in the brown jacket was standing under the yellow bathroom lights, and beside him were two other people, a woman in an old blue dress, a teenage boy in a denim jacket. They stood shoulder to shoulder, perfectly still, watching. Matt didn't stop. He drove straight across the parking lot, over the curb, through the wet grass behind the building. The car bounced so hard Lena hit her head against the window. Branches scraped both sides. For a few seconds, all I could see was leaves and black tree trunks whipping past the headlights. Then the ground dropped. We slid down a muddy slope and landed hard on gravel. A real road. A two-lane road, not the highway, but a road. Matt kept driving. No one said anything for at least 5 minutes. Maybe more. The radio was off. The GPS was still useless. Lena was holding a napkin to her forehead. I kept looking behind us through the rear window. Nothing followed. Eventually, we found a gas station. A normal one. Bright lights, 2 trucks at the pumps, a bored clerk behind the counter watching a small TV. Matt parked crooked across 2 spaces, and we all went inside like scared kids. The clerk looked up and said, "You folks okay?" Lena started crying again. Matt tried to explain. Not all of it, just that we got lost at a rest area and someone scared us. The clerk's expression changed when Matt said the name Willow Ridge. He didn't look surprised. He looked tired. "There's no rest area out there," he said. I said, "We were just there." He stared at us for a long second, then pointed toward a table by the window. "Sit down. I'm calling State Patrol." The police came about 20 minutes later. 2 officers. They listened, took our names, checked the damage to Matt's car, and asked if we had taken anything from the rest stop. That question bothered me. Matt said no. I remembered the coins in his pocket. So did he. His face went pale. He pulled them out and placed them on the table. One officer looked at the other. They didn't tell us much. They said there used to be a rest area called Willow Ridge off the old highway decades ago, before the route was changed. It had been closed after several disappearances in the late 70s and early 80s. The building was supposedly demolished years before we were born. Supposedly. They drove out with us at dawn. We couldn't find it. No exit. No trees. No brick building. No vending machines. No white van. Just open land and the modern highway stretching in both directions. The damage to Matt's car was real. Mud packed under the tires was real. Lena's bruise was real. The old coins were real. But the rest stop was gone. Months later, I tried researching Willow Ridge. I found almost nothing at first. Then I found a scanned newspaper article from 1981 about a family of 3 who vanished after stopping at a rest area late at night. Their car was found abandoned with the doors locked. Inside were half-eaten snacks, a paper cup, and a child's jacket. No bodies were ever found. The article included a grainy photo of the rest area. Same brick building, same flat roof, same vending machines. And in the background, barely visible near the edge of the photo, was a white cargo van. I don't take long road trips at night anymore. I don't stop at empty rest areas. I don't care how tired I am or how badly I need a bathroom. I'll drive 20 extra miles to a gas station with people inside. Matt and Lena don't talk about it much. We're still friends, but that night sits between us like something we all agreed not to touch. Every now and then, one of us will message the group chat after seeing an old rest area sign, and nobody makes jokes. Even after escaping, even with the safety of the police lights behind me, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen through the window. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had stayed longer. If we had sat at one of those picnic tables. If Matt had eaten something from the vending machine. If Lena had answered the voice in the bathroom when it whispered her name. Mostly, I wonder about the people we saw standing beside that man. The woman in the blue dress. The teenage boy. How long had they been there? And were they watching us because they wanted to hurt us? Or because they were trying to warn us not to stay? Story 4. Have you ever met someone who knew things they had no possible way of knowing? Not basic things either. Not your name because they overheard it, or where you were going because they saw your GPS. I mean the quiet things. The things you only tell people when you trust them. The things you delete from your phone and pretend you never said. This happened to me when I was 23, during a road trip from western Pennsylvania to Tennessee with 3 friends from college. My name is Evan, and at the time, I was working nights at a grocery warehouse, taking community college classes during the day, and pretending I wasn't completely burned out. The trip was supposed to be our last fun thing before everyone drifted into real adulthood. There were 4 of us in my old gray Honda CR-V, me driving, my best friend Marcus in the passenger seat, and Jenna and Cole in the back. We left after dinner because Marcus insisted driving overnight would save us money on one hotel night. That was the kind of logic that made sense when you were broke and 23. For the first few hours, everything felt normal. Gas station coffee, bad playlists, foggy windows, Jenna sleeping with her hoodie pulled over her face. Cole making jokes that weren't funny but still made us laugh because we were tired. Around 1:40 in the morning, we were on a quiet stretch of highway somewhere in West Virginia. I don't remember the exact road. I've looked at maps since then, and I still can't figure out where we were. The road was narrow, dark, and empty except for the occasional reflector glowing in my headlights. There were trees on both sides, packed close together like walls. Every few miles, we passed little houses with no lights on, just dark porches and mailboxes leaning toward the ditch. That was when we saw him, a man standing on the shoulder. He had one thumb out and the other hand holding a small duffel bag. He wore a dark green jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't waving or stepping into the road. He was just standing there, patient, like he knew someone would stop. Marcus sat up and said, "Absolutely not." I slowed down anyway. I know, that sounds stupid, but he didn't look threatening. He looked cold and stranded. There was no car nearby, no house, no gas station. Just him and that duffel bag under the yellow flash of my headlights. Jenna woke up and mumbled, "What's happening?" "Some guy needs a ride," I said. Cole leaned forward. "Dude, no. This is exactly how every bad story starts." And he was right. The street looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting in a weird small-town way. But my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. Still, I stopped. The man walked up to Marcus's window and bent down slightly. His face was thin, pale, with light stubble and eyes that looked too awake for that hour. "Appreciate you stopping," he said. "Only need a lift to the next station." His voice was calm. Not friendly exactly, but polite. Marcus looked at me like he wanted to hit me. I asked, "Where's the next station?" The man smiled a little. "You'll see it. That should have been enough. That should have made me put the car in drive and leave him there. Instead, because I was tired and embarrassed that everyone thought I was being paranoid, I said, "All right. Backseat's crowded, but we can make room." Jenna shifted toward Cole, annoyed but too sleepy to argue. The man opened the rear passenger door and slid in next to her. The second he got in, the car smelled faintly like damp leaves and old cigarette smoke. Nobody talked for about a minute. Then the man said, "Long drive to Nashville." My hands tightened on the wheel. Marcus turned slowly. "How did you know that?" The man pointed toward the front. "Saw the map on his phone." My phone was mounted on the dash, but the screen had gone dark. I told myself maybe he'd seen it before it dimmed. Maybe he guessed. Nashville wasn't impossible. Plenty of people drove south. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the silence in the car made me freeze, every nerve quietly asking the same thing. How long had he been watching us? "What's your name?" Jenna asked. The man looked at her, then out the windshield. "Ray." Cole gave a little fake laugh. "Well, Ray, you picked a creepy spot to need a ride." Ray didn't smile. Then he said, "You're Cole, right?" Nobody moved. Cole's expression changed first. He had been half smirking, trying to act tough. That disappeared. "How do you know my name?" Ray looked at him through the rearview mirror. "Jenna said it earlier." Jenna whispered. I didn't. The road hummed under the tires. My headlights caught a deer standing near the trees, eyes glowing white. Then it vanished behind us. Marcus said, "Okay, man. Next gas station, you're out." Ray nodded calmly. "That's fair." For another 10 minutes, nobody spoke. Then Ray said, "Marcus, your sister's still in Columbus?" Marcus turned in his seat, so fast his seatbelt locked. "What did you just say?" Ray's eyes didn't move from the road. "Just asking." "You don't ask me that. I didn't mean anything by it." Marcus had a younger sister who had moved to Columbus after a messy situation with an ex. He didn't talk about it with strangers. He barely talked about it with us. Jenna's voice came out thin. "Pull over." I said, "There's nowhere to pull over." And there wasn't. No shoulder wide enough. Just ditch, guardrail, trees. Ray leaned back like he was comfortable. "Relax. I'm not here to hurt anybody." That sentence did the opposite of what he probably intended. A few minutes later, we saw lights ahead. A gas station, small and bright, sitting alone at an intersection. I felt relief so strong it almost made me dizzy. I pulled in beside pump 3. Marcus got out immediately and opened Ray's door. "Ride's over." Ray stepped out with his duffel bag. No argument. No threat. He just looked at each of us, one by one, and said, "You should get some sleep, Evan." I hadn't told him my name. My heart sank into my stomach as he walked toward the side of the building, and for a second I realized how alone we were out there. No traffic, no other customers, just buzzing lights and blackwoods pressing in from every direction. Marcus slammed the door. "Drive." I didn't even get gas. I just pulled back onto the road. For the next 20 minutes, everyone talked at once. Cole said Ray probably saw our names on luggage tags. Jenna said she didn't have a luggage tag. Marcus said maybe he had been at the diner where we stopped earlier. I tried to tell myself that was it. Maybe he overheard us. Maybe he followed us from the diner somehow. It sounded thin, but it was better than the alternative. Then Jenna screamed. Not loud like in movies. More like a sharp breath that broke in her throat. I looked in the mirror. Ray was sitting in the back seat again, between Jenna and Cole. His duffel bag was on his lap. I swerved so hard the tires hit the rumble strip. Marcus yelled, "Stop the car." I hit the brakes and pulled onto the shoulder, gravel popping under the tires. Marcus jumped out, yanked open the back door, and grabbed Ray by the jacket. But the back seat was empty. Jenna was pressed against the opposite door, crying. Cole had both hands over his mouth. Ray was gone. So was the duffel bag. We searched the whole car. Under the seats. Behind the suitcases. The cargo area. Nothing. Jenna kept saying he was there. He was right there. Cole said. I felt his leg touching mine. Marcus stared into the woods with his phone flashlight shaking in his hand. I should explain something here. I do not believe in ghosts. I didn't then, and I don't now. But I also know what I saw in that mirror. I saw a man sitting in my car after we had left him behind. We got back in, locked the doors, and drove. Nobody slept after that. At least, I don't think we did. The next part is still blurry. I remember driving with both hands locked around the wheel, staring so hard at the road that my eyes watered. I remember Marcus calling 911, then losing service. I remember Jenna whispering prayers, even though she wasn't religious. I remember Cole saying we should turn around, and Marcus shouting that turning around meant going back toward him. Then I remember the radio switching to static. It had been off. A voice came through. Soft. Close. Almost bored. Cole cheated on his final paper. Cole went completely still. The static crackled. Jenna never mailed the letter. Jenna started sobbing. Marcus lied about where he was that night. Marcus punched the power button, but the radio didn't turn off. Then the voice said, Evan keeps driving because he thinks stopping makes it real. I slammed my hand against the radio until it went silent. For a few seconds, nobody breathed. Then Marcus said, Evan, pull over. I'm serious. Pull over right now. I looked at him, and that's when I realized something was wrong with the road. The same green mile marker passed on the right. Mile 118. I remembered it because one of the numbers was crooked, like someone had hit the sign. A minute later, it passed again. Mile 118. Jenna saw it too. No, she whispered. No, no, no. I sped up without meaning to. The engine whined. The trees blurred. Mile 118 came again. That was when I started to panic. Not movie panic. Real panic. The kind that makes your fingers stiff and your thoughts stupid. I kept thinking, find lights, find people, find anything. Then there was a thump from the cargo area. One heavy knock from inside the car. Marcus turned around slowly. The cargo area was packed with bags, blankets, a cooler, and Jenna's camera backpack. At first, nothing moved. Then the top suitcase shifted. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling, as I fumbled for the hazard lights. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. Don't stop, Jenna cried. Another thump. Then Ray's voice, muffled from behind the luggage, said, You missed the station. I lost control for maybe 2 seconds. The car slid onto gravel, then grass. Marcus grabbed the wheel with one hand, while I stomped the brake. We lurched to a stop in a field off the side of the road. Everything went quiet. No radio. No engine at first. Just ticking metal and Jenna crying in the back seat. Marcus opened his door, but I grabbed his sleeve. Don't. He looked at me, and I could see he was trying not to fall apart. Then all 4 locks clicked open by themselves. One after another. Click. 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 Cole started screaming for real then. We got out and ran. I don't remember deciding to run. 1 second I was in the car, the next I was stumbling through wet grass in the dark, my shoes sliding in mud, Marcus ahead of me, Jenna holding my jacket from behind. Cole fell once. Marcus dragged him up. Behind us, the CRVS headlights stayed on, pointed at the road like 2 blank eyes. And then we heard the driver's door open. Slowly. That soft mechanical creak. I looked back. Ray was standing beside my car. He wasn't chasing us. He was just watching. In his right hand, he held my keys. He raised them slightly, like he wanted me to see. Then he smiled. We reached a farmhouse maybe half a mile away. I pounded on the door until an older man came out holding a phone and a baseball bat. I was so scared I could barely explain what happened. Marcus just kept saying, There's a man. He's at our car. Please call the police. The farmer let us inside but kept the bat in his hand. I don't blame him. For muddy strangers, crying on your porch at 3 in the morning probably doesn't look normal. Police came about 20 minutes later. By the time they reached my car, Ray was gone. My keys were back in the ignition. The engine was idling. All 4 doors were locked. There was no sign of forced entry. No footprints they cared about. No duffel bag. No fingerprints they told us about later. The officers were polite, but I could tell they didn't believe the whole story. They thought we were tired. Maybe high. Maybe we picked someone up, got scared, dumped him at a gas station, and let our imaginations do the rest. One officer asked me 3 separate times if I had fallen asleep at the wheel. I said no, but that wasn't completely true, because I had started losing time. Small pieces. 10 seconds here, maybe a minute. I'd blink and the road would look different. I'd blink again, and Marcus would be saying my name like he had already said it twice. The police escorted us to a motel in the next town. None of us slept. We sat on the 2 beds with every light on until sunrise. In the morning, Jenna found something in her camera backpack. It was a photo, not printed, not old. It was taken on her instant camera, the one she had packed in the cargo area. The picture showed all 4 of us asleep in the car. Me behind the wheel, Marcus slumped against the window, Jenna and Cole in the back, and Ray leaning in from the open rear door, smiling at the camera. The worst part was the timestamp written at the bottom in black marker. 2:17 a.m. That was 20 minutes before we first saw him on the road. We gave the photo to the police. They took it more seriously after that, but not seriously enough to make us feel safe. They questioned staff at nearby gas stations. Nobody remembered him. They checked traffic cameras. Most of that road had none. They asked if any of us posted about the trip online. We had. That was the part that made everything feel uglier and more real. Jenna had posted a story from the diner. Cole had tagged the location. Marcus had posted a picture of my car 2 days before we left, license plate visible in the corner. I had made a stupid countdown post with the route in the caption. We had basically handed a stranger our names, faces, destination, and schedule. The police believed Ray, if that was even his name, had followed us from the diner. They thought he may have slipped into the cargo area while we were inside paying, hiding under blankets and bags. Maybe he had a second person helping him. Maybe he got out at the gas station, then got back in when one of us opened a door and nobody noticed. It didn't explain everything. It didn't explain the radio. It didn't explain the mile marker. It didn't explain how he had my keys. But it explained enough to make me sick. We drove home the next day. Not to Tennessee. Home. Nobody argued. For months after that, I barely slept. I checked my back seat every time I got in my car. I stopped posting where I was. I turned off location tags. I bought a dash camera. Jenna deleted almost all her social media. Marcus became the kind of person who locks a door the second he walks through it. Cole was the worst for a while. He kept saying he could still feel Ray sitting beside him, shoulder touching his, breathing slowly like he had all the time in the world. It has been 6 years. I wish I could say they caught him. They didn't. About a year after it happened, I got a message request from an account with no picture and no followers. It said, "You still drive too tired, Evan." I deleted it. Then I threw up in my kitchen sink. Even after escaping, even with the memory of police lights behind me, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen beside my car in that field. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. People always say not to pick up hitchhikers. That's good advice. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Sometimes you don't pick them up. Sometimes they already know where you're going. Sometimes they're already inside. Story 5. Have you ever looked into your rearview mirror late at night and felt something was wrong? Not just the usual tiredness or a strange shadow, but the kind of wrong that sits in your chest and refuses to go away. That's how my night started. I'm Emily. I was 22 at the time, and I was driving from Chicago to my parents' place in Indianapolis. It was one of those nights where the highway stretches out endlessly, street lights like tiny lanterns floating over the asphalt, the hum of tires on the road almost hypnotic. I'd stayed late at work, left the office at 8, and the roads were empty except for the occasional truck. I was tired, sure, but it was nothing unusual. I like driving at night. The world slows down, the city noise fades, and for a few hours, I can be alone with my thoughts. My little sedan had just enough room for me and a backpack of snacks, and I was halfway through a podcast when I noticed something odd in the mirror. It wasn't behind me exactly. Or, it was, but not what it should have been. For a second, I thought I glimpsed someone else in the back seat. My eyes darted to the seat, empty. I shook my head, laughed quietly. "You're just tired, Emily," I whispered to myself, gripping the wheel a little tighter. But then it happened again. Not in the seat itself, but in the mirror. The reflection was wrong. It didn't show me the empty back. Instead, I saw figures. Faint, gray, looming, standing along the highway as though they were waiting. I blinked hard, and they were gone. I told myself it was a trick of the headlights or my brain playing with fatigue. The road felt normal. Quiet. Empty. Safe. But my gut didn't agree. I kept stealing glances at the mirror, trying not to imagine anything, trying to convince myself I was just seeing things. A few miles later, I passed an old gas station. Closed, lights flickering, the pumps peeling with rust. I thought about stopping, grabbing a coffee, stretching my legs, but I hesitated. There was something in the mirror, again. A figure just standing at the edge of the lot, motionless. I blinked, and it disappeared. I told myself it was nothing. I called my friend Mia, who I was supposed to meet at my parents' house. "I'm tired," I said, trying to laugh. "Maybe I'm just seeing shadows." She didn't hear the tremor in my voice. "Drive safe," she said. "Don't fall asleep." The night went on. My headlights cut through fog I hadn't noticed before, low-lying and sticky. And every few minutes, the mirror betrayed me. More figures. Closer. Sometimes just standing by the guardrail. Sometimes leaning in from the side. I tried not to stare, but I couldn't help it. I stopped at a rest area eventually. Empty, except for the faint hum of an old neon sign. I poured coffee into a travel mug, shaking. I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. For a moment, I didn't recognize myself. My hair stuck out in odd directions, my eyes wide and red, my hands trembling. And behind me, in the reflection, a row of figures pressed against the wall, faces featureless, watching. I spun around, empty bathroom. Just me. I sat in my car for a while, trying to calm down. I tried closing my eyes. I tried thinking about something else. But in my dreams that night, because I fell asleep, exhausted, in the driver's seat, I saw them again. The figures reached inside the car, their hands brushing the windows, cold against my skin. I woke up with my head on the steering wheel, heart racing, morning light starting to creep over the horizon. By daylight, the highway looked ordinary again. Sunlight reflected off the asphalt, the trees swayed gently, a few cars passing by. But I felt different. Every shadow, every movement in the periphery made me tense. Every mirror, every reflective surface, a possible window into that other world I'd glimpsed the night before. I tried to tell my parents, my friends. "I think I saw someone, or something, in my car," I said. They listened politely, laughed nervously, and told me I'd been driving too late, too tired, that maybe it was just the road playing tricks. But the strange thing is, weeks later, I started noticing little details I hadn't paid attention to before. Highway signs, for example. There was one that read "slow, fatigue zone ahead." I laughed when I saw it, but it felt deliberate, like someone, or something, was leaving messages I was too tired to read before. And at night, even in my apartment, reflections would sometimes flicker strangely. The mirror in my bedroom sometimes showed movement behind me, shadows where there shouldn't be. I'd turn quickly, find nothing, but my hands would shake for hours afterward. I learned to avoid looking into the rearview mirrors too long. I stopped taking late-night drives. I became hyper-aware of reflective surfaces. And though I never saw the figures again in daylight, every time I closed my eyes at night, I could feel them there. Watching, waiting, patient. Sometimes, when I drive somewhere familiar, I glance at the back seat, half expecting to see them. And sometimes, I swear I catch a glimpse. It's hard to explain. You'd think this only happens in movies, that our minds play tricks when we're tired. Maybe that's what keeps me sane, thinking it's just fatigue. But my gut tells me otherwise. I haven't driven late at night alone since that trip. I avoid mirrors in public bathrooms if I'm alone. I even cover the mirror on my bedroom door sometimes, just to stop the occasional flicker of movement I see in the corner of my eye. The thing I learned from that night, and this is the part one want you to really hear, is that danger doesn't always make a sound. It doesn't always knock on your door. Sometimes it just waits silently in reflections, in the spaces you assume are empty, in the moments you let your guard down. And sometimes it knows you before you know it. So, if you ever find yourself driving late, and you catch something in your rearview mirror that doesn't belong, don't just glance away. Don't laugh it off. Fais attention. Because sometimes the mirror doesn't reflect reality. It shows you the parts of the night that follow, the ones that reach for you when you're too tired to fight back. And I promise you, some nights, those figures never leave. Story 6. I still remember the moment it started. The exact second I should have felt something was wrong, but I didn't. We were driving through the outskirts of Albuquerque, heading back from a long weekend trip to Santa Fe. My name's Liam, I was 22 at the time, and I'd been coasting through life like most college graduates, safe, predictable, and boring. My 3 friends, Mark, Jenna, and Tony, were in the car with me, half asleep in the back, windows down, music playing faintly, nothing unusual at all. We'd been on the road for hours. The kind of drive that lulls you, makes you feel like time has lost its shape. I was taking turns at the wheel so everyone could nap. The highway stretched empty in front of me, nothing but asphalt and the glow of distant streetlights. It was late, quiet, and the kind of night where you start noticing the small things, the hum of tires, the way shadows flicker against the dashboard, the subtle vibration of the rearview mirror. I glanced back at the others. Jenna had her head against the window. Mark's arm was draped over his eyes. Tony was curled up in the corner of the seat. I remember thinking, God, they all look so peaceful. I just want to keep driving until the sun comes up. That's when my phone buzzed. I pulled it up without thinking, probably an instinct more than curiosity, and saw a text from an unknown number. Wake up or we'll take him. I laughed nervously. Must be a wrong number, I muttered to myself, fingers hovering over the keypad, tempted to reply but afraid I'd just make it worse. The phone buzzed again. Wake up now. My stomach sank. I looked back at the rearview mirror. Tony had shifted slightly, his arm half covered over his eyes. But then he was gone. Just like that. I blinked, thinking I must be imagining it, my mind playing tricks after hours of driving. I shook my head and tried to focus. Maybe he had moved to the middle seat or fallen asleep differently. I reached back, called his name softly. Silence. My heart started pounding in a way I'd never felt before. Then the phone buzzed again. Next one leaves if you sleep. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. My pulse was roaring in my ears. I could feel a cold weight settle in my stomach. I tried to tell myself it was a joke, that someone was pranking me. But something deep in my gut screamed that wasn't it. I glanced at the rearview mirror again. And there he was. Tony, or the thing that looked like Tony, sitting in the back seat. Only his face wasn't right. Hollow eyes, like someone had drained the life out of him. I yelped and slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against asphalt. My heart slammed in my chest as I swung the car to the shoulder, staring at him. Mark was still there, sort of, but the second I blinked, he vanished too. The phone buzzed again. Sleeping is dangerous. Watch them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull over and get out, but the road stretched endlessly, empty, threatening. I tried to keep driving, trying to stay awake, trying to shake the dread that pressed against my chest. The texts kept coming, faster now, insistent, almost alive. Every time I tried to glance at the back seat, someone disappeared. I called Jenna. Nothing. I called Tony's phone, my own Mark's. No answer. It was like the world had gone silent, save for the vibration of that cursed phone. I told myself, this is insane. It can't be real. Asterisk, but every second spent looking in the mirrors, every pulse of light reflecting from the dash, told me otherwise. My back ached from twisting. My hands were trembling as I fumbled to keep my eyes on the road. I remember that stretch of highway like a nightmare. Empty, silent, and yet filled with movement that shouldn't exist. Shadows in the back seat flickered, like my friends, like phantoms. The texts never stopped. Asterisk, you're next. Asterisk, asterisk, close your eyes, you lose him. Asterisk, asterisk, he's gone, do you see? Asterisk. At one point, I stopped. I had to. My hands were shaking too badly to steer straight. I pulled off onto a deserted side road, headlights cutting a weak path through the night. I grabbed my phone, trying to trace the number, to call the police, to do something, anything, but there was no signal. Every time I touched the phone, it vibrated against my palm, the texts appearing instantly, faster than I could read. Asterisk, he's in the mirror now. Asterisk. I looked, and there he was. Tony's face, or at least a version of him, pressed against the rearview mirror. Hollow eyes, calm, patient. Watching. My hands shook as I fumbled with the door lock, trying to open it, to get out, to somehow escape. The world outside seemed normal, silent, still, but the back seat didn't. The hollow-eyed versions of my friends kept appearing, disappearing, a sinister dance just at the edge of reality. I tried to convince myself it was sleep deprivation, a hallucination brought on by long hours behind the wheel. But then I saw the reflection in the side mirror. Me. Only my eyes were hollow. My mouth didn't move when I breathed. And I was smiling. I slammed the brakes, chest heaving, vision swimming. My hands trembled as I dialed 911, only to hear static. My voice broke as I whispered my location. Asterisk, please someone, my friends, they're gone. Asterisk, the line clicked. Nothing. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of movement from the back seat made me freeze. Every nerve screamed that I was not imagining this. The back window reflected a face. Not Tony, not Mark, not Jenna, just a shape, calm and empty, watching. I floored the gas pedal. The car surged forward. The texts kept coming, vibrating endlessly in my pocket. Asterisk, you're alone. Don't look back. Asterisk. Every mile stretched, endless, looping. I'd catch glimpses of my friends in the mirrors, but when I blinked, they were gone. It was like they were being erased, one by one, and the messages were a countdown. My mind screamed, panic clawing at me, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't pull over safely. Every time I tried, the shadows in the back seat pressed closer, waiting. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. I lost all sense of time. My phone buzzed relentlessly, every vibration a knife in my nerves. And then silence. I dared to glance in the rearview. Empty. No one there. No reflections. Just the faint glow of the highway ahead. My pulse thudded in my ears. I couldn't stop shaking. I pulled off at the next gas station I saw, abandoned but lit, trembling as I grabbed the door handle. My hands wouldn't work at first. My fingers were numb, stiff. I sat on the curb, phone in hand, staring at the screen. No new texts. No number. Just the vibration lingering in my palm, like the aftershock of a nightmare. My friends, they were gone. Or maybe they were still there somewhere, trapped between the world I know and the one the car had pulled us into. When the police finally came, hours later, I could barely speak. I stuttered through my story. They didn't find anything. No signs of my friends, no evidence of a car following, nothing. Just me alone, trembling, staring at the mirrors. It's been years since that night, and I still avoid driving alone at night. I can't sit in the back seat without a sense of unease. My phone now sits far from my bed, and every vibration makes me flinch. I don't know what followed us that night, what watched, what waited. I don't know if my friends are still out there, or if that back seat took them somewhere beyond reach. I only know this. Some things on the road aren't visible until it's too late. Some messages are never meant to be ignored. And the mirrors? They never lie. Even now, I check every reflection. Not out of vanity, not out of habit, but because a small, cold part of me knows that hollow eyes could appear again, patient, waiting, watching. And next time, it might not let me get away. So if you're driving late, especially with friends asleep in the back seat, take this seriously. Stay awake. Don't ignore that feeling in your gut. And whatever you do, don't look too long into the rearview mirror. Because some things on the road, once they notice you, they never stop. Story 7. Have you ever driven somewhere, tired and restless, and felt like the road itself was watching you? Like it had a memory and a plan, and somehow it knew exactly how far you'd go before you realized you'd lost control? That's what happened to me last fall. My name's Sarah, and I was 22 at the time, living in a small town just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I just finished my second year at university, working part-time at a bookstore downtown. Life was quiet, ordinary, maybe even boring. I lived with my roommate Emily, and most of my nights were spent studying, watching late-night shows, or scrolling endlessly on my phone. Routine, predictable, safe, or at least I thought so. It started as a weekend road trip with Emily, our friend Kevin, and his younger brother Jake. We planned to drive to Nashville for a small music festival. It was supposed to be fun, a break from the monotony of campus life. We left Friday evening, packed into Emily's old hatchback, laughing, sharing snacks, the car cramped but lively. The roads were mostly highways, dimly lit by sporadic streetlights, and Emily's GPS guided us without fail. Until it didn't. We were somewhere in Kentucky, just past Lexington, when the GPS glitched. The map flickered, then rerouted us onto a new road, unnamed, unpaved, with no markers, no signs, just a narrow path flanked by dense woods. The voice said, "Follow route," over and over like a loop. Emily, where are we?" I asked, squinting at the dark path ahead. The trees pressed close, their shadows forming strange shapes in the headlights. "I don't know," she admitted, tapping the screen. "It's not on the map. GPS just added it." Kevin laughed nervously. "Must be a shortcut." "Nothing scary about a shortcut, right?" Jake groaned from the back seat. "I'm not driving through the forest at 2 in the morning. I want a hotel." But we were all tired. Arguments faded, and we followed it. At first, it seemed ordinary. The gravel crunched under tires. The smell of wet leaves drifted in through the cracked windows. A lone radio station hummed static, then faint, distorted lullabies began playing softly. Emily swore she hadn't touched the dial. "It's probably just interference," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I remember trying to focus on the road. The trees looked familiar, yet wrong. Every bend felt like we'd driven it before. Every hill seemed identical to the last. We joked about déjà vu at first, but laughter felt forced. The forest had a rhythm, and it was lulling us into something strange. About an hour in, I nodded off briefly. I woke with my head against the passenger seat. Kevin was asleep, Jake was on the other side, Emily's hand still on the wheel, though her eyes were shut. My heart sank. I think we need to stop," I whispered. Emily opened her eyes, blinking rapidly. "We can't. The road doesn't end." I tried turning back, it loops. I frowned. "Loops? You'll see," she said, voice trembling. It brings us right back." I didn't understand at the time, but I was about to. Minutes later, we passed the same bend, the same split in the trees, same rusted signpost leaning at an angle. Mile markers we hadn't noticed before appeared, 118. We passed it, then again, 118, and again, 118. I felt my pulse in my ears. My hands trembled. I tried to focus on the road, on the tires crunching gravel, but the repetition was hypnotic, like a recording stuck on loop. That's impossible," Kevin muttered, his voice barely audible. "We just passed this 5 minutes ago." "It's a glitch," Emily said, but the tightness in her jaw betrayed her doubt. Then came the whispers. Soft at first, almost drowned by the radio static. Faint, childlike, but clear. Not words exactly, more like fragments. "Don't turn. Don't sleep. He's behind you." I froze. Jake let out a low groan, rubbing his temples. "I hear it too," he whispered. The radio swelled, the lullabies distorting into something jagged, eerie. Then suddenly silence. Emily blinked. Did anyone else just feel that?" Kevin nodded, pale. Yeah, something's wrong. We tried to turn back. The GPS recalculated, guiding us forward onto the same road. Every attempt to retrace our path led us straight back into the loop. Trees, hills, markers, all repeating endlessly. I don't remember how long we drove, maybe hours, maybe less. Time seemed to stretch unnaturally. Somewhere in the middle of that endless road, we all fell asleep. I woke suddenly, gasping. The car was still moving. Emily's hands were on the wheel, but she wasn't conscious. Kevin sat in the back, Jake beside him, eyes wide, frozen. And I wasn't in the front seat. I was alone in the back. Panic tore through me. I grabbed the door handle. The seatbelt refused to release. I could feel the car steering on its own, the tires humming against gravel that felt alive beneath us. Emily groaned, waking in the passenger seat. Kevin and Jake blinked, adjusting themselves to different positions, as though sleep had shuffled us randomly. But the engine never stopped. The car never slowed. Then I saw it, just for a second. A figure standing on the roadside. Tall, thin, wearing dark clothing. No face I could make out, just a shadowy shape. It raised a hand, motionless, and we passed it. The moment felt wrong. The shadow, it shouldn't have moved so fluidly. Did you see that? I whispered. Emily shook her head, clutching the wheel. I don't know. Don't say anything. Just drive. Minutes or hours later, the GPS finally blinked a new route. It led us to a small gas station that wasn't on our map. Its lights flickered like a dying candle. Emily pulled in, hands shaking. We all exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping us. Relief, but it didn't last. As we stepped out, Kevin noticed something. The same shadow stood near the tree-line, watching, waiting, and then it disappeared. We got back in the car, desperate to leave. The GPS now worked normally, taking us to Nashville. But the feeling lingered. Each mile marker we passed on regular highways seemed familiar. Repeating, echoing. At the festival, we tried to laugh it off, but every laugh felt hollow. Sleep was fitful. Each of us woke in strange positions, as though the night still moved us, even after the roads ended. Emily would wake with her seatbelt buckled, Kevin with his head turned awkwardly, Jake clutching his phone like a lifeline. And every so often, late at night, we'd hear whispers. Soft, unintelligible, but unmistakably around us. We'd check the windows, the doors, the room, and find nothing. It's been months now. I try not to drive late at night. Emily sleeps with the lights on. Kevin refuses to go anywhere remotely rural. Jake, he stopped talking about the trip altogether. Sometimes I wake up, heart pounding, convinced the car is still moving, the engine still humming, the road still looping endlessly. The scariest part, I don't think it ended. That road, that route to nowhere. It wasn't just a glitch. It felt alive. And I'm certain it's still out there, waiting for the next tired driver to follow it. GPS recalculating endlessly, lullabies distorting, the landscape repeating, the seats shifting, the engine running. And maybe, just maybe, the shadow is still watching, waiting for us, or anyone else, to wake up in the back seat, alone, with nowhere to go. Sometimes, the scariest part isn't what happens on the road. It's knowing it could happen again. If your gut tells you something is wrong, listen. Every instinct counts. Because some roads, they don't want you to leave. They just want you to keep driving. And when you finally do stop, you might find you're not the same person who started the trip. The world feels smaller, strange, repeating. And in the quiet, you can still hear the lullabies, faint, distorted, calling you back. Story 8. Have you ever looked at a receipt and felt like it knew something about you that it shouldn't? I don't mean your name, or the last 4 digits of your card, or the exact time you bought something. I mean something private, something you don't walk around telling people, something like your blood type. That's what I found in my cup holder the morning after we stopped at a gas station that I still can't find on any map. My name is Aaron. I was 27 when this happened, and at the time I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, working as a delivery dispatcher for a medical supply company. Nothing exciting. I had a tiny apartment, a bad sleep schedule, and a habit of drinking gas station coffee like it was water. That weekend, my younger cousin Tyler and I were driving to Oklahoma to help my aunt clear out a storage unit after her husband passed. It wasn't supposed to be a fun trip, but it also wasn't supposed to be dangerous. Just two guys in an old Toyota Camry, driving overnight because we both had worked Monday morning and thought we could save time. You always think you can handle one more hour. That's how nights like this start. It was around 1:30 in the morning when we got low on gas. We were somewhere off a quiet highway, surrounded by nothing but dark fields and the occasional farmhouse light way off in the distance. Tyler was asleep in the passenger seat with his hoodie pulled over his face, and I was fighting to keep my eyes open. The road looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. At first, I thought it was just exhaustion. The lane markers kept sliding under the headlights in this steady rhythm, and every few seconds I'd catch myself blinking too long. Then the gas light came on. I cursed under my breath and tapped Tyler's arm. "Wake up. I need you to look for a station." He groaned and pulled out his phone. "Where are we?" "That's what I'm asking you." He stared at the screen for a while, then frowned. "Signal's bad. It says the nearest station is like 32 miles. I looked at the fuel gauge and felt my stomach tighten. We were not making 32 miles. Then maybe 2 minutes later, I saw lights ahead. Not bright highway lights. Just a dim yellow glow like an old porch bulb. As we got closer, I made out a small gas station sitting alone on the right side of the road. It had 2 pumps, an office with dirty windows, and a faded sign above the roof that just said fuel. No brand name, no prices listed, no open sign, but the lights were on. Tyler sat up straighter. "Was that on the map?" "No. Maybe it's old." "Old still works," I said, mostly to convince myself. I pulled in beside the first pump. The place looked frozen in time. The pumps were the older kind, with small screens and buttons that looked sun-bleached. There was a payphone bolted to the wall outside the office. I remember that because I hadn't seen a real payphone in years. The moment I put the car in park, the office door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall and thin, wearing dark coveralls and a gray baseball cap. He moved slowly, like he had been expecting us. Not surprised, not annoyed, just ready. Tyler whispered, "Full service?" I almost laughed, but the sound died in my throat. The attendant walked to my window. I rolled it down halfway. "Evening," I said. He didn't answer. His face was pale under the yellow lights. Not sick-looking exactly, just drained, like someone who worked nights for too long. His eyes flicked from me to Tyler, then down to the gas gauge. "Can we get $20? I asked. Still nothing. He just turned, lifted the nozzle, and started pumping gas. Tyler looked at me with wide eyes, silently mouthing, "What the hell?" I shrugged, trying to act like it didn't bother me. I told myself some people were just weird. Maybe he didn't speak English. Maybe he was tired. Maybe we were the creepy ones, 2 half-asleep strangers showing up in the middle of nowhere. But then I noticed something. The pump wasn't making any sound. No clicking. No low mechanical hum. No rushing fuel. The numbers on the screen weren't moving either. The attendant just stood there with the nozzle in the car, one hand resting on the trunk, staring at his own reflection in the rear window. After about 30 seconds, I said, "Is it working?" He slowly turned his head toward me and smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not even threatening. Just empty. Then the pump clicked. He removed the nozzle, placed it back, and walked to my window again. He held out a receipt. I reached for my wallet, but he shook his head once. "No charge?" I asked. He didn't speak. He just pushed the receipt through the window. The paper felt warm. I looked down at it, expecting a total. Instead, the receipt was blank except for the time. 1:43 a.m. No price. No gallons. No station name. Tyler leaned over. "That's weird." I wanted to ask the attendant about it, but when I looked up, he was already walking back toward the office. His steps were completely silent. I put the receipt in the cup holder and pulled out of the station. For the next 10 minutes, neither of us talked much. Tyler kept glancing back through the rear window until the gas station disappeared behind us. Finally, he said, "That dude was creepy." "Yeah," I said, "but we got gas." "Did we?" I looked at the fuel gauge. Full tank. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. About 20 minutes later, the car started doing something strange. At first, it was small. The steering wheel tugged slightly to the right, like the road was pulling us. I corrected it. Then it happened again. Tyler noticed. "Your alignment bad?" "No." The radio turned on by itself. "Just static." I reached forward and hit the power button, but the static kept playing for another second before cutting out. Then Tyler said, "Aaron." I looked over. He was staring at the dashboard. The GPS screen had gone black, but there was a single line of text across it. "Keep driving." I hit the screen. It flickered once and went back to the map. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of tires on the road made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. Tyler sat up fully now, no longer sleepy. "Pull over," he said. "There's nowhere to pull over." "Then slow down." I took my foot off the gas. The car didn't slow. I pressed the brake lightly. Nothing. For one horrible second, I thought the pedal had gone stiff. I pressed harder. The car finally slowed, but not much. It felt like something was pushing us from behind. My heart sank into my stomach as the door locks clicked shut around us, and I realized we were completely alone out there. Something was wrong, and we had no real way out. Tyler grabbed his phone. "I'm calling 911. "No signal," he said a second later. The headlights dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again, and in the rearview mirror, I saw yellow lights. Far behind us, the gas station. That made no sense. We had been driving straight for at least half an hour. Tyler turned around and saw it too. "No," he whispered. The station was sitting on the side of the road behind us like we had just pulled away from it. Same two pumps, same dirty office windows, same yellow glow, and the attendant was standing in the road. Not near the pumps, in the road, watching us leave. I hit the gas this time, even though part of me felt like I wasn't the one controlling the car anymore. The engine roared, and the station dropped behind us into darkness. Then things get blurry. I know that sounds convenient. Believe me, I hate it too. But there is a stretch of that night I do not remember clearly. I remember Tyler saying he smelled something sweet, like syrup or antifreeze. I remember my hands feeling heavy on the wheel. I remember the road stretching ahead, black and endless. At some point, Tyler said, "Aaron, your nose is bleeding." I touched my face and saw a dark smear on my fingers. Not a lot, just enough to scare me. "I'm pulling over," I said, but I didn't. Or I couldn't. The next thing I remember is sunlight. Hard, white morning sunlight pouring through the windshield. I woke up with my cheek against the driver's side window and my neck aching. The car was parked crooked on the shoulder of a highway. Tyler was slumped beside me, breathing but pale, his mouth slightly open. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw the sign ahead. "Welcome to New Mexico." I stared at it, waiting for my brain to fix what I was seeing. We had been nowhere near New Mexico. We were supposed to be heading toward Oklahoma. I shook Tyler awake. He jolted so hard he hit his knee on the glove box. "What happened?" he gasped. "I don't know." My hands were trembling as I checked the time. 8:12 a.m. We had lost more than 6 hours. The fuel gauge was almost empty. I opened the cup holder. The receipt was still there, but it wasn't blank anymore. At the top, in faded black print, it said, "Paid in full." Under that were 2 lines. "Aaron Miller, O positive. Tyler Harris, of negative." I just sat there staring at it. Tyler leaned over and read it. He didn't say anything at first. Then he opened the door and threw up on the gravel. I don't blame him. I knew my blood type because of my job. Tyler knew his because he had needed surgery as a kid. But there was no way that attendant knew. No way a gas pump knew. No way a receipt should print that. We drove to the nearest town on fumes and found a diner next to a mechanic shop. The waitress took one look at us, and asked if we had been in an accident. I guess we looked that bad. Tyler had dried blood under one nostril. I had a bruise on my wrist in the shape of a thumbprint. Neither of us remembered how we got it. We called the police from the diner. The officer who showed up listened carefully at first. Then, as we explained more, his face started doing that thing people do when they're deciding whether you're crazy or high. He asked if we had been drinking. No. Taking anything. No. Had we picked up a hitchhiker? No. Had anyone else been in the car? We both said no, but I remembered the smell in the car. That sweet chemical smell. The officer looked at the receipt, frowned, and asked where we got it. I told him about the station. He asked for the name. There wasn't one, I said. The sign just said fuel. He asked what road it was on. Neither of us knew. He asked for the exact location. We couldn't give it. That's when I saw the doubt settle in. He took a report anyway. He was polite about it, but nothing came from it. A mechanic checked the car and found nothing wrong with the brakes, steering, or locks. No tracking device. No tampering he could see. But he did find something under the driver's seat. A small black plastic cap. He said it looked like it came from a syringe or medical tube. I felt cold all over. When I asked if someone could have drugged us somehow, the mechanic just looked uncomfortable and said, "I'm not a doctor." We went to urgent care that afternoon. They ran basic tests, checked our vitals, and told us we were dehydrated and sleep-deprived. They said stress could cause nosebleeds. They said missing time can happen when people are extremely tired. Maybe they were right. Maybe. But then explain the receipt. Explain the blood types. Explain how we drove hundreds of miles with no memory, no crash, no speeding ticket, no gas stops, and no idea who kept the car moving. Tyler refused to finish the trip. My aunt had to send someone else to handle the storage unit. We stayed in a cheap motel that night with a chair wedged under the door handle. Neither of us slept. Every time a car passed outside, Tyler sat up like someone had knocked. I kept the receipt. I don't know why. Proof, maybe. Or punishment. For weeks after, I searched online for that gas station. I checked maps, forums, satellite views, old highway routes. I found a few abandoned stations that looked close, but never the exact one. Then, about 3 months later, Tyler called me at midnight. He sounded like he'd been crying. "Check your mailbox," he said. I lived in a different state by then. I walked downstairs to the apartment mailboxes, already feeling sick. Inside was an envelope with no stamp and no return address. Just my name, written in block letters. Inside was another receipt. Same warm paper. Same faded black print. This one said, "Next fill up due soon." Under that was my blood type again. O positive. And below it, one more line. "Stay awake next time." Even after everything, even after police reports and locked doors, and all the ways I tried to convince myself we had imagined it, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face of that attendant. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. I don't drive at night anymore. I don't stop at remote stations. I don't let anyone pump gas for me. And whenever I get a receipt, I read every line before I leave. Because sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened. It's realizing someone out there knew exactly where you were going, exactly what you were, and exactly how long they could make you disappear before anyone noticed.